Hello, everybody. It is Sunday, May 25th, 2025. Welcome to episode 110 of the Old Mage MTG podcast with your hosts, Old Mage Steve and Old Mage Alex. Thank you so
Hello.
much for joining us. Today, we have a big topic for everybody. It's going to be a two-parter. This is part one, where we're going to talk about pre-modern gold. Gold cards printed in the pre-modern era. Why are we talking about this? Because I love gold, Alex. I love gold in all
Gold.
of its forms.
Gold.
Do you have any gold bars?
No,
Never went to Costco and bought the gold bars when they were going on
no,
sale? I have
no.
zero gold. Would have been a good decision to start getting into gold like 2 years ago because it's done very well versus the S&P 500.
Sometimes I watch prospector types on YouTube and other places and watch them metal detect and pan for gold.
You think about painting for gold
It's
sometimes,
exciting to
maybe?
me. I want to go to Alaska and
Nothing's stopping you.
yeah,
You could probably do that at any time.
crippling poverty.
I have digital gold. Do you have any digital gold, Alex?
No, no, I don't. I don't know how to invest in digital gold.
I bought some Bitcoin. They call it digital gold. Other people call it
Oh,
rat poison. It is
oh.
pretty asinine, really, what it is. I can't figure out what anybody uses it for, really, except to buy influence with the Trump family. Now, that's one thing. You can buy digital gold, not Bitcoin, but you can buy his shit coins and then you can get invited to the White House. I was reading a particularly funny post today. It was on, I think it was on Yahoo Finance, actually. It was some like 25-year-old dipshit who bought a bunch of the Trump coin. And then he was just complaining to Yahoo Finance about how shitty the dinner was, and Donald Trump never came and met him, and how he wasted like $350,000 and he didn't get anything out of it. And I was like, what did you expect, buddy? Who are you?
You should have bought a big room full of gold coins instead.
Exactly. But I do have some digital gold in the form of Bitcoin. I wish I had purchased more. I wish I had purchased more when I first heard about it, Alex, back in
Doesn't everyone?
2009, 2010. I was there at the beginning. I knew about it. But the only people I knew who were buying it so they could buy mushrooms on the Silk Road. And I wasn't doing that. I was afraid of psychedelics. I'm already mentally unstable. I didn't want to take magic mushrooms from the dark web and then end up eating my friend's heart. Because you hear stories like that where somebody who's already a little wacky, they do the magic mushrooms, they take LSD. Next thing you know, they wake up and their friend's heart is beating in their hands. It's happened many times.
Many times.
I didn't want to eat your heart, Alex, so I only have a small amount of digital gold on Bitcoin. But
I'm
I
glad you're
do
looking out for me.
I do have plenty of gold Magic the Gathering cards.
See
These are
that?
still pretty cheap. You can get a lot of bulk gold for like pennies on the dollar, really. Pennies on the dollar.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of pre-modern legends and gold bordered cards that are not expensive.
But before we get into the main topic of today's episode, I'm going to do a little bit of shilling. I'm going to say, since you're here listening to us already, please subscribe to our channel on YouTube, hit the like button, click that notification bell. What does the notification bell do? I don't really know. I don't know if it helps us. I do know that it annoys you on your phone. You get those little things pop up. But what you can do is you can still hit the notification bell on our channel, and then you could just go change the settings in your phone to not actually send you the notifications. I think that works. If audio is more your thing, if you don't like watching us on video because you don't like seeing my face, or perhaps you don't like seeing Alex's face, you can listen to us on Spotify, where we have video also, but you could just do the audio. You can listen to us on Google Podcasts. You can listen to us on Apple Podcasts. And then one more way you can support us. This is actually a fabulous way to support us because you get stuff out of it too. If you happen to make purchases on TCG Player already, please consider clicking our TCG Player affiliate link. You can find it in the episode description below. It's right down there. If you're watching us right now, just look in the description below on YouTube. Click the link. You put the cards into your cart. Then you click the button. The cards show up at your house. Alex and I get a little tiny percentage. It
Thank you.
costs you nothing extra. I've been telling Alex lately, we're selling some cards, baby.
Yeah.
We made a
Thank you,
dollar the other
listeners.
day. We're making like $10 in June. We got like $11 coming to us in July. We're very close to being able to pay for our Zoom subscription. I'm going to be very excited when we can pay for a month of Zoom subscription. You might say, What the hell are you guys using Zoom for? Who pays for Zoom? Me. I'm the last person paying for Zoom. I'm using it for the podcast because it's very simple and I don't have to learn some other broadcasting software, which I probably should do because there's free options out there. But anyways, to everybody who's been clicking that link lately, thank you very much. It's very much appreciated. Now on to the main topic of today's episode. This is segment one. It is the only segment of episode 110 of the Old Mage MTG podcast. I'm calling it the best gold cards in pre-modern MTG. I got the idea for this episode when I was reading an old article written by Zvi Maushevitz,
Ah,
Zvi of Fires of Yavimaya fame, titled The Top 50 Gold Cards of All Time. This is what I do when I have a little bit of downtime. I look around for Magic the Gathering articles that were written in the pre-modern era, and I learn about the history because there's so much that I missed out on. In this article, Zvi covers gold cards printed between 1993 and 2009. You can see this article was written in 2009. I'm not going to cover everything in this article. We're not going to discuss all 50 cards. I want to focus solely on the cards that are in his list that were printed in the pre-modern era. So this is fourth edition to Scourge because that's been my wheelhouse since I've got back into Magic. That's Alex's wheelhouse. That's most of what we're playing and thinking about. So that's what I'm going to focus on. And within this list, there are 38 that are pre-modern legal. We're going to discuss those 38 and perhaps figure out what is the best gold card of the pre-modern era. He has a lot of honorable mentions in here too. Maybe we'll talk about some of these in part two if we finish kind of early. But for right now, I'm going to go straight to the cards in his top 50 list, starting with Destructive Flow. Out of the pre-modern cards in this list, this comes in at number 38. Destructive Flow costs 1 black, 1 red, 1 green. It is an enchantment. It's a rare from Planeshift that has a current market price of 84 cents and a gatherer rating of 3.282. It says at the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player sacrifices a non-basic land. I will say I have never seen anyone play this. I have seen it in bulk bins. I think I picked up a copy or two not that long ago that I saw in a bulk bin. What does V have to say about this one? He says, if only there was a deck that could both cast it and want to. This card is
ouch.
hard to play, much harder than it looks at first glance. I think it looks hard at first glance to play, even very hard. It takes a while before a deck with the number of non-basic lands, tricolor decks would naturally play, would get to stop sacrificing lands. So by that, you're not likely to be able to drop a swamp, a mountain, and a forest on turns 1, 2, through 3. So before you can get to cast this, you're probably going to have to sacrifice some lands. If you would reliably cast this off a mountain, a forest, and a swamp, that would be great, but that's not an option. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying, Alex? I might not have described that perfectly, but what he's getting at is if you're playing a tricolor deck, you're definitely going to have non-basic lands to be
Yeah,
able to reliably cast a 3-color card on turn 3. And here, the 3-color card you're going to be casting is going to cause you to have to destroy those lands that you use to
right.
cast it. So it's a rough play in the decks that are going to be able to play it. So what did I say about that? Not glowing commentary. Not only is it hard to cast in decks that could play it, it's a dead card against many pre-modern decks, which is where I would be thinking about playing this card. Because so many pre-modern decks, because of the difficulties with the mana base, are 2 colors or even 1 color. So, like
Hmm.
a lot of the pre-modern decks you're going to face, it's going to be a dead card against. Those pre-modern decks that do run non-basics, I think, can be better dealt with by running Wastelands, Dust Bowls, and different Stone Rain effects, Thermokarst, Winter's Grasps, maybe even Stone Rain. There's a lot of other options.
Yeah, there's enough other. Yeah.
This is not what I would expect to hear about a top 50 gold card. So why did this make Zvi's list? Really, it was included for its power during a very specific time. So remember, we're talking about the pre-modern cards, but this is not a list of the best pre-modern or the best gold cards for the pre-modern format. It was a list of the best 50 gold cards that had been printed up until 2009, and he really examines them from the perspective of the time period they were printed in. So this is one of several cards that we'll see in this list that I think is included for its power during a very specific time. He also says about this card right here, consider that many current decks in Shards of Alara block only have a handful of lands that can even come into play untapped, let alone basics. So many decks are drawing completely dead against a 3-drop. That's a strong incentive to find a way to play it or at least sideboard it, even if your deck suffers quite a bit while the card is in play. So there are different times where you just didn't have that many options for, non-basic lands that generated more than 1 mana. Many of those came into play tapped. If you're bringing in a non-basic that comes into play tapped against destructive flow, you're going to have to sacrifice it before you even get to do anything with it. So
Mhm.
you're going to be drawing a bunch of dead lands against destructive flow. I also found a comment about this card in the Annals of Gatherer, Alex. There was a comment by one person that was left all the way back in 2010. It was Maginara on April 27th, 2010 at 11:48 and 58 seconds in the AM. He said, the card was in its peak that card was in its peak times worth more than $30 or something around that. That seems
Wow.
crazy. This apparently, at least for a short period of time, was a chase card. Probably because, like Vish said, in certain blocks, I mean, you had very few non-basic land options and they were coming into play tapped, and the decks that ran those would be completely neutered by this card. He said more than $30 or something around that. I think it deserves more than 2 stars. That's not exactly going praise either. And there are many other ways to get 3 colors than by non-basic lands. First, any land that sack, like Terramorphic Expanse or fetch lands, in mana generating effects and creatures and whatnot. I mean, it totally destroys some decks. So again, what he's saying is, give it a break. It's not great in general, but it is fantastic against particular decks. It completely neuters particular decks. And you can run mana molds like Birds of Paradise to generate different mana. You can run mana rocks to generate different mana. So you can get your 3 colors out if you're the one casting this card, if you're the one building decks around this card, without necessarily having to include non-basic lands that you would have to sacrifice to it. So some unfinished thoughts that popped in my head when I was thinking about this card. Is there a black, red, green deck you can brew in pre-modern that's strong on its own, and this could just be brought in from the sideboard for some ideal matchups? I don't know. Seems like you could fairly reliably cast it if you're running 4 Bloodstained Mires, 4 Wooded Foothills, because in pre-modern you do have 2 fetch lands that you can use to get some of the basics that you would
Mhm.
need to cast this. But question
And you can
is,
run Birds of Paradise and animals and things that fix your mana for you, if that's your thing. I don't know.
Birds of Paradise and some fetch lands. It seems like you could probably pretty reliably cast this around turn 4 at least. But is it worth it? Again, I think there's not that many decks in the pre-modern meta that this is going to be great against. So I don't know if it's worth it, but it would be an excuse to play Darigaaz the Igniter, Alex. That's number 49. No, 38. 38 on our list. 49 is V's list, 38 on our list. The next one, I'm going to pull some of these up on MTG stocks, actually. Coming in at 37 on the list, if we ignore all of the cards that are not pre-modern legal, is Teferi's Moat. Teferi's Moat, Alex. Teferi's Moat is 3 colorless, 1 white, 1 blue. It is an enchantment, and it states, as Teferi's Moat comes into play, choose a color. Creatures of the chosen color without flying can't attack you. This is a rare from Invasion. Current market price of $1.16. Gather rating of 3.862. From Jv. Jv had some things to say about the moat. Like the original Moat, Teferi's Moat is a card that a large percentage of decks simply cannot beat, and it puts many others on only a handful of outs. This is why I loved playing the original Moat back in the day when I started building a bunch of decks around it. There were, if you got the Moat out and if you protected it, there were some decks that simply just couldn't deal with it. They couldn't beat you.
Mhm.
And if I found myself playing a deck that could easily deal with the Moat, then you just sideboarded it out or something. But the Moat just completely blanked, you know, a whole bunch of different decks.
Yeah, I mean, some colors almost completely,
Curd Apes and Ernoms coming my way. Who gives a shit? You don't even have Disenchant. Maybe you're running Tranquility, but you're probably not mainboarding Tranquility. You know what I'm saying? The problem with a card like Teferi's Moat is that it isn't easy to utilize, even though it looks like it should be. Decks need to be able to cast it reliably, and then they have to be able to rely on it. You can't put a Teferi's Moat out there for a long, long time against decks unknown with the knowledge that an enchantment removal or bounce spell will almost certainly kill you unless you are very brave. And once you start down the Moat road, it's hard to stop. There's also always the risk that one of their creatures will be the wrong color, or it will fly, or something similar will go wrong. And the creatures that can attack are still around to prevent you from winning the game in the meantime. He also says 5 mana is a lot. So all those things are true. It's 5 mana instead of the 4 mana that you had to pay to cast Moat from Legends.
hmm
Also, it's not just that all non-flying creatures can attack you. You got to name a color.
hmm
So there are some limitations here. One of the good things is though, unlike the original Moat, you can put this in a deck where all your forces are on the ground. It just says creatures of the chosen color without flying can't attack you.
Yeah,
You're still free to attack.
yeah.
Which
So it is a one-sided effect.
flavor wise is kind of a little bit strange. I don't know how your soldiers like run across the moat and theirs can't.
The magical mode.
But maybe they're just thinking of ways that they could weaken the moat,
Yeah.
and this is just what they came up with.
The
It's
other
a
thing
bit
is,
of a
I mean,
flavor
like in
shift.
pre-modern, I feel like you just have a wider array of enchantment removal, you know, as compared to when Moat was around and you were playing it in the 90s,
It is
Uh,
true.
and I don't know, you're kind of putting a lot of your eggs in one basket, expecting this to protect you. So you need to do something else to protect yourself. And then you're like having multiple layers of defense, sort of, and it's kind of like, I don't know, maybe you could streamline it.
It's not fantastic. Like you said, there are more options for spot removal of enchantments in pre-modern than there were back in the day when I was playing
And
Moat.
board wipes of enchantments.
And board wipes. They're played more often, probably because the pre-modern card pool is full of so many incredibly powerful enchantments. Every time I build a deck, I'm like, okay, what is in this deck to help me deal with whatever enchantments I might be seeing on the other side of the,
Yeah.
of the board? I was talking about facing Curd Apes and Ernoms with my Moat earlier. Well, now we got Naturalize. They don't even have to be main board and Tranquility that could potentially affect something on their side that they don't want to get rid of. They just, Naturalize. You got Naturalize in green. Didn't have to think about that before. There's all sorts of stuff. So I do love it, but for those reasons and more, I haven't played it yet. It's just not quite as easy to get the benefit out. It's not as beneficial to you as Mo was back in the day. I'm also currently a student of the Wakefield School. I'm mostly playing monocolored decks. So it just hasn't made its way into my mono green decks, of course, or my mono white decks, of course, because if it was there, I couldn't cast it. It will have a spot in the sideboard of my blue-white weenie deck when I convert my white weenie deck to a blue-white weenie deck. It does have a spot actually in the sideboard of a Lightning Angel deck, which I built when I first started playing Pre-Modern and I took apart. I haven't played much lately, but thinking about gold cards, talking about gold cards, has inspired me to put it back together because I can run so much gold in it, Alex. And even there are spells that I want to include in that deck that aren't gold cards, but I can get gold bartered World Championship editions of them. So there's going to be so much fucking gold in that deck, Alex. I am going to put Teferi's Moat in the sideboard of that just because I dream of using it to keep goblins at bay. That's my big dream. I just want to bring it in against goblins. Now everybody's running red-green goblins, right? So they just naturalize it. But oh well. Oh well. Next card. Coming in at number 36 is one of my all-time favorites. Nicol Bolas. Nicol Bolas, Alex. When we started playing Magic again, I bought my first cards in 2022 after not buying a Magic card for roughly, what, 20 some years, 25 years? I think the very first card I bought was a Solkanar the Swamp King, and then right after that I started buying these fellows, the Elder Dragons from Legends. Nicol Bolas is 2 colorless, 2 blue, 2 black, 2 red, summon Elder Dragon Legend. It is flying, it is 7/7, and the text states that an opponent damaged by Nicol Bolas must discard their entire hand. I just watched the most recent episode of uh, gameplay on the Timmy the Sorcerer Old School Magic channel. He hard cast a Nicol Bolas against a Lion Dib Bolt deck. He was so excited. He passed the turn, it got swords.
Swords. I saw that. I saw that clip.
That's what happens. That son of a bitch. He shouldn't have swords it so fast. He should have at least let him turn it sideways and then swords or something. Just let it stay on the board for a turn. An opponent damaged by Nicol Bolas must discard entire hand. Ignore this effect if opponent has no cards left in hand. Pay 1 blue, 1 black, 1 red during your upkeep, or Nicol Bolas is buried. So this is, part of the cycle of original Elder Dragons. This was always the most powerful of the Elder Dragon. If you actually can get this on the board and just swing with it once, I mean, it's pretty much worth it. Especially, if you're one of those fancy people who had like a Lotus and a bunch of Moxes, you could ramp this out.
Mhm.
It's unlikely, it's most likely to get removed from the board, swords or control magic away or something. But when it works, oh boy, those are the kind of moments an old mage lives for. Current market price of $150, but you can get the Chronicles reprints for bulk bin prices. Gatherer rating of 4.139, so the people do love Nicol. I do love this card. 8 mana is a lot, so I'm surprised to see it on Zvi's list. But what does Zvi have to say about Nicol Bolas? He says, it was a different world back then. Having a creature this big was remarkable, and his ability was even better. Both of those things are true. You didn't see many 7/7s. Certainly not flyers. And certainly not a 7/7 that did something awesome like took your opponent's whole hand. I'm thinking like there were Force of Natures, right? But if you didn't pay the upkeep, that killed you. There was some other 7/7 from Legends named Cosmic Horror. I can't remember what the downside was, but it had an asinine downside. Nobody ever plays it. It's a crazy card. They discard their entire hand. Game over, man. Game over. Not that it should be any other way if you hit them with an 8-drop. That is a good point. A lot of people wanted to get their hands on good old Nicol. Some wanted the power. Others just wanted him because he was a cool, evil dragon. That's me. Chronicles made a far less cool version available and dramatically increased the supply, which took out most of his street grid. So it sounds to me like Zvi included him in his list because he's a sick-ass dragon from Legends. He made the cut because he's a sick-ass dragon from
Yeah,
Legends.
that's some history.
He's the best of the original Elder Dragons, so I approve of his inclusion. Next on the list, Alex. Come in nerdy number 35. Nerdy 35. That's what I almost said. Heroes. Oh no, no, okay, there we go. I did. I almost put the apostrophe in the wrong position. People are going to see that I typed it like that. They're going to call me names.
Oh man.
Alex, how do you feel when you hear the words double healing salve +1? Does it get you excited?
Yeah, sure.
Well, it got me excited. I'm actually building decks around this thing. Heroes Reunion It is 1 green, 1 white, instant. Target player gains 7 life. It's an uncommon from Invasion. Has reprints and Return to Ravnica, Archenemy, and Dual Decks, Knight versus Dragons. Current market price 28 cents. Gather a rating of 4.008. It's just a little life gain instant, and it has such a high rating on Gather. It's just so above rate. That's what I love. Back in my day, Alex, when I first started opening Magic cards from revised booster packs, if I paid 1 green and 1 white to cast a life gain spell, I'd be giving myself 1 life with Stream of Life.
Mm-hmm.
In the Invasion era, you can spend 1 green and 1 white to gain 7 life. You can even give 7 life to your opponent. I don't know why you would want to do that, but there's probably
Yeah.
some
But your
times where you
team
would
made
want
it in
to
a
do that.
team game or
He
for
made it in a team
diplomatic
game.
reasons in a multiplayer game, and it's an instant. So,
This would be a cool card to include, possibly in like a group hug commander deck.
mhm.
That's not what I'm doing with it, though. What does V say about it? On occasion, I have considered sticking this spell on an Isochron Scepter, especially if I can fetch the reunion off a Cunning Wish. That would be sick. We don't happen to play in a format that allows Isochron Scepter, but I'm trying to think of like what's the next best thing that I can do with this spell in pre-modern with the tools I have available to me in pre-modern. Isochron Scepter. I don't know when this card was first printed. Maybe in Mirrodin. It gives me Mirrodin vibes. It is 2 colorless, artifact, imprint. When Isochron Scepter enters the battlefield, you may exile an instant card with mana value 2 or less from your hand. Heroes Reunion fits the bill. Then you pay 2 colorless tap. You may copy the exiled card. If you do, you may cast the copy without paying its mana cost. So there are decks out there that simply have no hope of overcoming that amount of life gain, and Heroes Union cast repeatedly can bury them. That's what I'm trying to do. I said Heroes Union. I'm trying to repeatedly cast Heroes Reunion. As a professional tool, this is still somewhat narrow, but to casual players, what is good in life is often simply life. I am also kind of a casual player. I'm on the record stating I don't really like broken decks. I don't like decks that go infinite, combo off on turns 2 or 3. I understand why some people like them, but I want to play a game of Magic, man. I want to have some back and forth. I want to give some time for the board to develop. And I think you can do some really fun, still casual, but also fairly powerful things just attempting to play Heroes Reunion in a more fair manner. I don't play formats where Isochron Scepter is legal. I have mentioned that. But, Alex, I've had a card sitting in my box since Weatherlight was first released. Is this an opportunity for me to play my Bosium strips, potentially? Might this finally be a non-terrible use case for my Bosium strip? Yes or no?
Yes.
It is a non-terrible. Okay, whew, whew. Bosium strip, by the way, 3 colorless. Then you pay 3 colors, tap it. Until end of turn, if at any time the top card in your graveyard is an instant interrupt or sorcery card, you may play that card as though it were in your hand. If you do so, remove the card from the game.
Yeah. In your deck, I like it. I like that you only have one in your deck. Uh,
I'm only running one so far. Yeah.
that's good. But yeah, it allows you to reuse your cards. It's not
And the
great
thing I
for every
love,
deck, but
yeah,
it's
the thing I
I
love
can
the
see
most,
it in a deck like you're trying to make.
yeah, the thing I love the most about like, Heroes Reunion or Lightning Bolt is they're so efficient, right? You just pay such a small mana for an outsized
Yeah.
effect.
So it doesn't really matter if you're paying the 3 for the Bosium strip.
Yeah. When you have to run them through the Bosium strip, okay, then they stop being incredibly efficient, but you played them once in a super efficient manner, and now you pay a little more. You neuter them a little bit. You get the same effect. You got to give more to get it, but it's still worth it, I think, with the most efficient cards to feed even more mana in
Yeah,
it
I mean,
to play
you're
it
drawing
again.
a card. If Bosium strip was like tap and spend 3 to draw a card, I think people would like it. And you're
That's
picking
true.
which card it is, so it's not like you're just going to get a basic land. You're picking one of your useful spells out of your library or out of your
That's
graveyard.
true. So I mean, it has to be the top card, so you can't
That's
always.
true. I forget about that.
There's some limitations to it, but yeah, I mean, in some formats, old school, slower formats, pay 4, tap your tome. Jam Day Tome to draw a card can be incredible in control
Hmm.
decks. Bosium Strip. Here we go.
Yeah.
Pay 3, tap.
And I mean, yeah, I don't know. As long as all your spells are spells that you might want at any point of the game, you know what I mean? If you're running all good spells that you could use at any time the way your deck works, then, it doesn't
Absolutely.
matter too much which one's on top.
I have a lot of things that I'm trying to, I have a lot of things that I could potentially replay with the strip. And again, only one strip. The deck doesn't depend on the strip
Yeah.
functioning. It's
It's
just
just to help you
there,
from stalling out later.
yeah, as an added bonus.
Yeah.
I also thought Heroes Reunion could potentially be interesting to pair with, to throw in a shadow, uh, white green weenie deck. Because I've been thinking about taking my white weenie shadow deck, converting it both to white blue and to white green. Might be useful to throw, a couple copies of this in that, even though that is a aggressive deck. It's not as fast as the most aggressive decks in the format, and sometimes all I need is like another 2 turns or 1 turn even of chipping away for 2 damage or 3 shadow damage or four
Hmm.
shadow damage. And if this card can just buy me a turn to swing once more with my unblockable creatures, that could win some games. So thinking about that too, but I'm really playing around with it in a green white control shell that you first faced for the last time yesterday, and you were devastated. You had a hard time sleeping at night because you were thinking about it. The humiliation was almost too much for you to bear. Next card. This comes in at number 34. And gold cards from the pre-modern era that are on V's list. It is Absorb. I like this card. It's part of a group of cards that were published or printed like this in Invasion. I'm always saying published instead of printed. I like these 3 mana, 2 color counter spells from Invasion, but you don't see them all that much in pre-modern. Absorb is one of these 3 mana, 2 color casting, two color counter spells that were printed in this set. It's 1 white, 2 blue. It is an instant. It says counter target spell, you gain 3 life. So it's a counter spell plus a healing cell.
Hmm.
Rare from Invasion, reprinted in Ravnica Allegiance and recently in Dominaria Remastered. I believe there's a very cool borderless treatment in Dominaria Remastered. Let me remind myself what this looked like. This. I thought this was pretty cool. I like this version. I'm still a fan of the OG, but I like this. There's blue white mage in the background, like absorbing power from the black mage in the foreground.
Range, yeah.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, I like the idea of the counter spells that have the additional use. I don't really like this one because I don't like just gaining the 3 life. I'd rather have something else. Like there's a lot of blue counters that let you do something like draw a card in addition to countering the spell, which I would like more. Um, I don't know. I feel like I'd like it more if the white effect was like prevent the next 3 damage that would be dealt this turn to target creature or player. Then I
Okay.
wouldn't have to gain the 3 life myself. I could like use it on one of my creatures to give it like, a 3 damage force field for the turn.
Okay. That's a controversial take, Alex, right there. That's crazy. I wasn't expecting to hear you say that. I don't think I would like that ability as much because I think of like how often it would actually do anything. How many times when you're countering a spell might you also not have any damage dealt to any of your creatures that turn? Like it just seems like a lot of times, or at least some non-zero number of times, you have to say it
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
Some non-zero number of times, you're not going to get any benefit from that extra effect. Whereas
That's
here, you
true
you at
versus,
least
yeah,
always
it's
get
a
something.
use it or lose it. If you use it on
Yeah.
yourself, you won't gain the 3 life. I was just thinking of it because a lot of the spells like healing salves say either gain the life or prevent the damage?
Okay, now you're talking. That would be great. That would be sweet if it had that option.
Yeah,
You either gain life, 3 life, or prevent 3 damage to target creature, something like that. That would be cool, actually.
yeah.
And definitely not too powerful. Current market price of $4.17. Gather a rating
Really?
of, yeah,
Wow.
not cheap. I mean, there's these reprints now, Dominator Remastered, super cheap. We're talking 25 cent, 50 cent
Yeah.
cards.
I'm surprised that's $4 though. I mean, it is a rare, but
It has its moments where it shoots up in price for some reason, where it
seems
like
to.
5X's and trickles back down, but doesn't go back down to as low as it was before, and then it doubles, and who knows?
And the
I don't
art's
know.
kind of cool.
The art is pretty cool.
Wizard arms.
I do like Wizard Arms. This card does two things control decks want to do. So control decks like countering spells, they like gaining life to buy time. This does both of those things. What does V have to say about it? He said Absorb is a wonderful second counter spell for traditional white-blue style control decks. Now, note that he refers to it as a second counter spell. Given its casting cost, I think if I do run it, I only run it if I have if I have the need to run more than
Yeah.
four two casting cost counter spells, because you have a lot of two casting cost counter spell options that are available to you in pre-modern. I think I run this as like a fifth counter.
There's so many counterspell options. It's hard.
So many. He says it gives those types of decks, white blue style control decks, two things they want and nothing they don't. The best part about Absorb is when opponents become afraid to cast a spell for fear that their opponent will gain life and use that valuable time to fight their way to a Wrath of God or another way to turn things around.
Hmm.
So I never thought about it in that manner, that it might actually slow down your opponent because they don't want you to gain the life and they think you might have it in your hand. I don't know how often that would happen because three life isn't necessarily on its own just cast
Yeah,
once a game
it's hard for
changer.
me to imagine that being a deterrent, to someone who's trying to play spells to kill you. But I do see how it could, it could be a bluff on certain turns at certain times.
Hmm. So that's Absorb. A strong alternative, or additional, I should say, a strong additional counterspell option for certain types of decks, control style decks in particular. Next card. Next pre-modern card on this list is Terminate. Terminate is one black, one red, instant. It reads, destroy target creature. It can't be regenerated. It's a common from Plane Shift. There are more reprints than I want to mention. It's a very
Mhm.
popular card throughout the history of Magic. It's reprinted all the time. Current market price in its original printing is 74 cents. It has a gatherer rating of 4.333. It is a more broadly effective terror, although you have to have a red in order to cast it. Original
Yeah,
terror was one colorless, one black. Would see more play in pre-modern if this color combo was more popular. That's what I believe. I don't
that
see
makes
it
sense.
as much, but I think that's only probably because not as many people, I mean, like black red isn't the most popular uh style of deck, color deck to run in pre-modern. There are definitely people who, that just fits their play style. They like to design a lot of those decks, but you don't run into them as often as
Yeah, I agree.
many other color combinations or even monocolored decks. As Zvies points out, man, I can't pronounce the name. I don't even know. I hope that I'm pronouncing his name sort of correctly. Zvi. Red decks need their removal to be able to go directly to the face, which is the one thing you cannot terminate. And while being cheap is nice, the creatures you need terminate for don't come out fast enough to reward you much for it being so cheap. That's his take on terminate. It would be interesting to see how a popular 3 mana version would be if it could hit players. Now, that would be super cool. In the vein of absorb, just add a an additional mana to the casting cost and give it a secondary effect. In this case, like play this spell to destroy target creature, it can't be regenerated, or to deal 3 damage to target. That'd
Yeah,
be sick. I looked around like on Scryfall to see if, since this article was written in 2009, if they ever printed anything like that. I don't think they have. I don't think they've ever printed this hypothetical 3 mana card, which would be quite sweet. But they did print something called Blightning. which probably people who play Modern know, but it was new to me.
Oh, lightning. I see what they
Lightning.
did.
It is one colorless, one black, one red sorcery, deals 3 damage to target player. That player discards 2 cards. So it takes,
Ah,
you know, uh, 2 effects that both black and red are known for, combines them onto 1 card, slightly increase the casting cost, and gives you the option to. Well, actually, it doesn't give the option to. It does those 2 things every time you
yeah.
cast it. So it's a discard and a damage dealer, only to the target player. So there is some limitation to the damage. Pretty cool card. Shard printed in Shards of Alara first, I think. Market price 21 cents. Not many reprints. Maybe it wreaked havoc. Maybe this is a card that they decided they didn't want to reintroduce to standard very often. I don't know. I don't know the history of Lightning. That was an interesting card. And that's Terminate. V says if you're running a deck with red in it, go with removal that goes to the face instead. Not a bad general rule, not a terrible general rule. Maybe put it in the sideboard
Hmm.
or decks, sideboard in against decks where you're facing more large creatures that you need to get rid of. Next card in the list coming in at number 32, Solkanar the Swamp King.
Yeah.
Another original legendary creature from Legends. This creature is still awesome. Not necessarily in that art treatment, although it's okay. It's okay. You can run whatever art treatment you want. But the original one, that's the one that really gets me going. This is the part of the podcast where I type in Sol Kanar, not Kanara, the Swamp King, and I pull up the Legends version. It is 2 colorless, 1 red, 1 black, 1 blue. It is a summon legend, 5/5. It has Swamp Walk. Solkanar's controller gains 1 life each time a black spell is cast. Current market price of $43.97, and it's Legends printing, but there are reprints from Chronicles, from Time Shifted, from Dominaria Remastered. All of those are available really for like bulk bin prices. So if you want to play Solkanar, you can definitely play Solkanar. It has a gatherer rating of 4.036. I would encourage people to make Solkanar their commander in like moderate to low power commander games. Why not?
I
That's
would
what you sh
encourage them to make.
I'm encouraging them. That's what you should be doing. That's what you should be doing with original Legends from Legends. You
Yeah,
should be playing them in
I agree.
EDH.
I agree.
I think Zvi nailed everything there is to say about this one, really. He says, as I've already noted, back in the day, gold creatures didn't have to be good deals in order to inspire awe. When you're a triple threat like Solkanar, you can take things to the next level. The most common way to take out a creature this large was to use black removal spells, other than Swords to Plowshares. But, Terror, for instance. And Solkanar was both black and had Swamp Walk to punish the owner of the spell for looking at him funny. You think you're going to Terror my Solkanar? Think again, buddy. With all the dual lands and the temptations of Mind Twist and Demonic Tutor, this is also a great point when it comes to old school and multicolored decks.
Land
The, f-
walk.
the frequency with which people run Underground Seas, Badlands, because they want to, they just want to splash in for a Mind Twist or for Demonic Tutor because they're evil. A lot of those decks won't be able to either block or touch the King of the Swamp. Being this large for this price at the time was an outstanding deal. That's true too, even if nowadays it doesn't look like much. Even just being a 5/5 Swamp Walker with this
Yeah.
minor life gain ability for 5. Sick, man.
Yeah, when you look at
Look at this
the
original.
other creatures and legends and
Yes.
how ridiculous some of them are with their casting cost, it's just so weird that I don't know, there's just so much variation in the strength to casting cost, ratio.
It was just a legit good creature
Yeah.
from Legends, which there were many that I couldn't say that about.
Yeah. So, important question, Steve. Considering his ability, considering that he's a swamp king,
Yes. The answer is yes.
uh, should Solkanar be black, blue, green?
Yes.
Yes.
The only reason is they never really printed black, blue, green cards. I'm sure it
Yeah,
had
yeah,
something to do
I
with the color
understand that.
pie.
Yeah.
But yes, yes,
It's a weird color combo to see,
yes.
but I feel for like a swamp king who has a life gain ability for you, uh, you know, maybe green instead of red.
I mean, it would be totally reasonable. Not just reasonable. I like that. I like that. I mean, you can't go back in history. You can't change history, Alex. What's
Yeah,
done is
yeah.
done. They've already been printed, but that is a good idea. And actually, I'm holding right here in my hand a legend card from Apocalypse that is black, blue, green. I don't think any of the original gold colored legends from Legends were this color trio. They stuck more to their specific thoughts they had about the color pie then. I don't believe there were any that were green, blue, black, but at some point in Magic they did start printing legends. They were green, blue, and black. This one is Fungal Shambler. It is a beast from Apocalypse. It's a rare, it's 6/4. It has trample. Whenever Fungal Shambler deals damage to opponent, you draw a card, and that opponent discards a card from his or her hand. Fungal Shambler. Seven to cast. It would be nice. I mean, it would be nice to turn that Bayou sideways to generate some mana to cast your Solkanar the Swamp King. Not, I get it. He ends this little paragraph by saying, on top of it all, who doesn't want to play with a card called Solkanar the Swamp King? That
Yeah.
is in the spirit of Legends.
Great name.
Next card. And actually, next on Zav's list. Comes in at 40. On his list, it's number 31 if you only look at the pre-modern legal cards on this list. Next up on the list is the Queen of the Slivers, Alex. The Queen of the Slivers is Sliver Queen. When I look at this card, I think I'd probably love this card the same way I love Solkanar if it was printed when I was in middle school and first opened a pack of Magic
Yeah,
cards.
yeah. We didn't have slivers when we started, so it just not like doesn't I feel like hit home for us
It's not in the same way.
as
Not in the
far as
same way the
nostalgia
original Legends do.
goes.
Yeah.
But sweet
Sliver
card.
Qu- Sliver Queen is one white, one blue, one black, one red, one green. So 5 mana total, one of each. It is Summon Legend. It is 7/7. Sliver Queen counts as a sliver. You can pay two colorless. Don't have to tap it. Just pay two colorless. Put a sliver token into play. Treat this token as a 1/1 colorless creature. So it's a huge creature that generates more slivers, which is a clan that benefits in so many different ways when they have more of each other around. It's a rare from Stronghold, reserve list, current market price of $261.34.
Crazy.
Sweet sassy molassy. I should have loaded up on Sliver Queens when Stronghold first came out. I keep wanting to call it Sliver King because I start to say Sliver Queen and I think Liver King, so it comes out Sliver King. It is a gather rating of 4.460. I hate the Liver King. He is a sick fuck. This was the first five color card ever printed, Alex. Something I was reminded of when I read
Really?
V's article. He says right here, Sliver Queen was the first five color card. He also says Queen was also simply freaking huge, even in its base form, well above the standard curve of the time. That made the Queen a combination of one of the most potent long-term weapons and a great deal, even if you could never sink another 2 mana into it. So yeah, simply just getting it out, turn 5 or even turn 6, 7/7 is quite good. Even if it doesn't stick around for you to generate a bunch of other slivers, although that is the dream. The problem was that mana back then was nowhere near as generous in standard, and in extended, where the sliver decks came into their own, they mostly proved too fast for the big old queen, even though the mana could usually handle it.
Yeah,
That
if you
left,
have a bunch of buffed up slivers that are already attacking,
yes,
bringing out the queen just so that you can make more slivers eventually over the next few turns is probably like, yeah,
it's a win more card.
yeah.
Seems like it. That left most of us trading in our sliver queens to the kids who would better appreciate them, of which there was a more or less endless supply. Those kids are now older and they have jobs as computer scientists and software developers, and then they're spending $261.34 to buy sliver queens now. That's what's happening, I think. What do I have to say about this card? Most pre-modern sliver decks don't run the queen. That's something I've noticed. You can design a faster, leaner sliver deck that's probably even more powerful without it. It is, I think, a win more card when it comes to the sliver decks and the sliver clan. I think you definitely buy it if you're making commander and EDH sliver deck. You got to have the queen in there. Just flavor wise, you got to have it. Get a proxy at least if you don't want to spend $260, because really, who wants to spend $260 on Sliver Queen? Get a proxy. Put it in the EDH deck. Cost is a factor. I like playing it in my 5 color slivers deck, but I only play that digitally. I haven't actually built that in paper. And if I do build it in paper, I don't see myself buying the Sliver Queen. So my paper pre-modern slivers deck will not have Sliver Queen in it because
Yeah,
it's
I
just
don't
there for
want to
fun
make a
factor.
sliver deck like badly enough that I would pay that much money for a card for it. So if I do make one, it'll probably just be without the queen.
I said, yeah, a $250 Sliver Queen is very low on my list of cards to acquire.
Yeah,
I'd rather buy a playset of beta earth elementals and beta air elementals and beta fire elementals, probably. I mean, there's so many things. You know what I'm saying? I'm
I know what you're saying.
trying to think what else. I would rather eat out.
I'd rather spend that money on any kind of old cards, really, other than the
Yeah.
Sliver Queen, probably. If I got one, I'd sell it and buy other stuff.
I'd rather get a nice pair of running shoes and then still have some money left over to buy a beta earth elemental
Yeah,
and a beta air elemental.
some
Next
beta
card in the
lands, baby.
beta lands. I buy one beta land every month, Alex.
Mm.
Still doing it.
I haven't bought any in a while. I looked
I'm
the
a
other day, and the only ones I saw were ones that I already had that I was thinking about.
I'm about to post number 14. I post it every month when I buy it, except for the months when I forget to post it, and then I post it early the next month and I say, oopsie. Uh, got to decide how long I'm going to go for the forest. I think I want to have 25 of the forest. I buy one copy of the best beta forest every month until I don't. I think maybe once I get copy 25, that's when I'll stop doing it. So it's a multi-year project. And then after that, I have to decide if I go to the islands or the plains. Luckily, my favorite beta island, and what I believe is the best beta island, is also the cheapest beta island. That's true with the beta forest, too. I love how this is working out for me. My favorite one has been the cheapest one. That's not true with the swamp. My favorite swamp is the most expensive beta.
Uh-huh.
The plains, I know what my favorite plains is. I have to look to see what the prices are. Hopefully, it's the cheapest one, too. I love it when I get what I want for a good value. Next card on the list is Reparations, Alex. It's 38 in Zvi's list. It's 30 on our list of the pre-modern legal cards from Zvi's list. It is one colorless, one white, one blue. It is an enchantment, and it states that whenever target opponent successfully casts a spell that targets you or a creature you control, you can do what?
Draw a card.
Draw a card. You may draw a card. That thing happens. Reparations. Current market price of $7.73. It is a rare for Mirage. It is reserve list. Gather rating of 4.341. I really wanted to pull this up on MTG stocks. Oopsie, I just dropped some cards. I'm fiddling with cards in my hand. I just dropped them. I wanted to pull some up on MTG stocks because you can see this is a card that if people have tried to spike multiple times.
Hmm.
most recently in like early to mid 2024, it shot up as part of some buyout over a very short period of time, 10x from May to June. And it's been on its way back down ever since. From Jvi, there's more to Magic than just building decks and winning games. No, I have never put reparations into a deck or thought about doing so. No, you haven't either. I just want to say here, Jvi, you're overestimating me. I have definitely thought about buying this and putting it into a deck. No, it has no worthwhile uses. Again, you're overestimating me. I thought that it was maybe like reasonable. Not great, but like not terrible. But that's all right. Every time I think about this card, I get a smile on my face, and that, my friends, has made all the difference. I have not put this card in a deck yet. I have thought about it. I don't think it's terrible, especially in like casual commander.
Oh yeah.
I look at cards and I'm like, okay, competitive 60 card format. No, it doesn't automatically go into my shit card pile. I think, okay, any other formats, lower powered formats, multiplayer formats where this might be fun in. I think this is reasonable in uh, casual commander. You're going to have people coming at you, right? People
Yeah.
coming at your creatures.
It's a I think it's a fair casting cost. It has a good effect. The question is
Yes,
just, are you going to be playing it against the right deck? Is your opponent's deck going to make it worthwhile? Do they have enough stuff that targets in their deck? So kind of, makes me think of it as a sideboard card maybe. But in Commander, like you said, there's three players that might be targeting you. At the
I
very
think
least, it
casual.
might be a it might disincentivize them from
Exactly.
looking at you.
Exactly. Don't even look at me. I don't like to be looked at. Avert your eyes.
I think I'm trying to think. That was a strong comment by
I
him,
know.
and I'm looking at it and trying to think why he doesn't like it so much. And the one thing I am thinking that maybe I'm overlooking is that it has to be successfully cast. And if you're playing blue, you might be countering a lot of those spells that would be drawing you a card.
Yes,
Um,
that is a
yeah,
good point.
if it didn't have the successfully cast part, it would probably be a lot better as a blue and white card.
You're playing blue, has to be successfully cast. If you got something on the board that you really want to stay on the board, if they point some removal at it, are you going to just let it happen just so you can pull your next card, which might be a plains,
Yeah.
which you don't need? This is a good point. I've never actually played this card. I've just looked at it and thought, might not be absolutely terrible. Maybe it is. I hate it now. Why does it spike in price? Just because of the goofy flavor text that people think is hilarious. Sorry, I burned down your village. Here's some gold. It's
Yeah, I think people are like speculating that it'll get like banned or something, or they just want to run it as a joke or
it's
whatever.
become a meme. It's
Yeah,
really not that. It's not, it doesn't, I don't find it to be hilarious. It's not, I don't know why it's a thing that's picked up, so
yeah.
many people have picked up on. I mean, I feel like this is the flavor text that Morrow wrote, and he's talked about it many, many times. Some people really enjoy it. I don't know. That's why I keep shooting up in price. Uh, for the meme, nobody plays it for the meme though. They just buy it and they put it in their box
Yeah.
for the most part.
Yeah, I think it's a speculative move.
Stormcrow's a better meme.
Oh well. Next card.
Recoil. What did you say?
I said next card.
I said recoil.
Oh, okay.
Recoil is the next card. 36 on V's list. Comes in at 29 on our list. Recoil is one colorless, one blue, one black. It is an instant. It states return target permanent to its owner's hand. Then that player discards a card from his or her hand. A beautiful little tempo
And that's a
card.
chosen discard effect.
That player discards a card from his or her hand when it doesn't specify random or chosen. I don't know what the default is. It might have updated gatherer text.
No, it doesn't.
Okay. Common from invasion. Current market price of 12 cents. So it's bulk prices. Gatherer rating of 4.331. From Zvi, Bouncing permanents is far superior to bouncing creatures. That is true. And bounce spells that are cantrips are far superior to those that are not. That is also true. This is not technically a cantrip, but the discard effect makes it free and also opens up the possibility of it becoming removal if your opponent has an empty hand. So he calls it free because, you cast this, so you spend one card, but then you're also getting rid of one card on your opponent's end, so you're even there on cards. There's no net loss of cards, but then you also get an effect on top of it. That effect is taking something from the board, getting it back into your hand. Presumably, since your opponent paid mana to originally get it from their hand onto the board, they would prefer to have it on the board. And then you taking it from the board, putting it back into their hand, is disrupting some part of their game plan. It's a card that I like. I'm often thinking about playing with tempo and building tempo-focused decks in Premodern. I've talked about it multiple times, and I just haven't sat down and actually built one. There's a couple that I want to build. One is mostly red, and then there's a lot of spells in both blue and black to play around with this effect. But this is a nice option for one of my many unbuilt tempo builds. I like Recoil.
Yeah,
Is is
by
what this
default, effects that cause a player to discard a card allow the
choice?
affected player to choose.
Choice, okay.
Yeah. That's what I thought. I just wasn't
That's
sure
what
if I
I
was
would
going
have
to say
thought
it
too.
backwards, which
That's
I
what I
do
would have
sometimes.
thought too. Recoil. It's a nice little card. That's what I got to say about that. Nice little card. Trying to see if there's any different art. Yeah, they just stuck with this art the whole time. Surprised. It was in a World Championship deck.
Okay, cool.
Oh my God, another gold bordered card for me to buy. Carlos Romao, 2002. We haven't learned about that deck, Alex. That's a future episode of the Old Mage MTG podcast. Next card on the list is Phelddagrif. Most people know Phelddagrif. I think even the kids these days know Phelddagrif because it's such a common group HUD commander for that commander format that so many people play. It's one colorless, one white, one blue, one green, summon legend, 4/4. Has a bunch of different abilities. You can pay one white, give it flying until end of turn. Target opponent gains 2 life. You can pay one blue, return Phelddagrif to owner's hand. Target opponent may draw a card. You can pay one green, give it trample until end of turn. Put a hippo token into play under target opponent's control. Treat this token as a 1/1 creature. So you can give it all sorts of abilities, and at the same time, when you do, you give your opponent something that's beneficial to them. It is a rare from Alliances. Current market price of $9.17. When the whole world was infected with COVID, it was as expensive as $50. I don't know
Crazy. I'm so
why.
glad I didn't buy a $50 playset of $50 Feldegrifts.
I remember we were on the phone during this time, Alex, is when we first started thinking about Magic again. You were calling me. You were like, the prices are going crazy. We need to buy now. We need to buy now. And I was like, no,
I
Alex, there's a lot of liquidity in the market.
don't
There's a
remember
lot of rampant speculation.
that.
What I will say is if you have some things that you really want, there's a lot of Magic that we want to buy. So I wouldn't say don't buy anything at all. You know, maybe, but go slow. Things are going to come down. Dollar cost average into your positions. Don't go ham now. Don't FOMO, Alex. Imagine if you would have FOMO'd on $50 Phelddagrifs.
I know.
Somebody out there FOMO'd on $50 Phelddagrifs. Or else they wouldn't have gotten to $50 if there wasn't somebody FOMOing on $50 Phelddagrifs. I just like saying that. What does V say about this card? As unwieldy as it may appear to us now, this was one of the best deals out there because it was large enough to pose a threat and efficient enough to not slow you down and let you leave mana open, which left it all but impossible to kill. So like, it was a 4/4 with some abilities for 4 mana. That's pretty good,
Yeah.
reasonable.
Uh-huh. You can
This
if you really need to bounce it back to your hand to save its life.
this was a reason to splash green into your control deck, or splash white if you were pulling a Mike Postelnick. I don't know what that means yet, but we'll figure that out at some point, maybe. We know a little bit about Mike Pustelnik. He played some of the early versions of the Rock, some of the competitive forms of the Rock. We talked about him a little bit in the episode we did when we were learning all about the Rock. I'm sure he's probably known for many other decks too. Phelddagrif was good times and was brought back again as the also surprisingly worthwhile Questing Phelddagrif. That was printed in Planeshift, I believe. For a while, Phelddagrif seemed like a card that was a tiny bit out of reach. You wanted very much to play it, but it didn't quite do enough to justify going that far out of your way, while we felt whimsical and vaguely guilty about those lovable purple guys languishing in our binders.
Mhm.
So it's a type of card. There are many cards like this. Type of card where you look at it and you're like, this is pretty cool, actually. Like maybe I should give this a try, and then it just never makes it into the deck because it's just never quite there. It just sits in the box. It sits in the box until the next pandemic, and then the price of it 50x's in the course of 4 months, and then you got to unload them. That's when you unload them. Or if you play Commander, you put this in your Commander deck. Sleeve it up as your group hug commander. I think that's the best. That's the best way to use Phelddagrif, in my opinion. Group hug commander. Agree or disagree?
Agree.
Now. Okay,
Agree.
good.
Agree.
Coming in at number 27 on our list, it's number 34 on V's list, is a card that Kyle brought to LobsterCon 2025. Who is Kyle, you ask? Don't worry about it. Stop being so nosy. That card is that card is Mystic Enforcer. Kyle wants privacy. Mystic Enforcer is 2 colorless, 1 green, 1 white. I gotta stop laughing at myself. It is 3/3 creature, Nomad Mystic. Protection from black. When you have Threshold, Mystic Enforcer gets +3/+3 and has flying. So potentially this guy comes into play as a 6/6 flyer, pro black.
Yeah, we were just talking about this off the show. I wasn't too familiar with this card, but I like it. All you have to do is make sure you're playing a deck that fills up your graveyard enough, and then you have a very efficient 6/6 pro black flyer.
I like it a lot. It's a rare from Odyssey, reprints on Time Shift and Dominator Remastered. Current market price of 51 cents. A lot of great creatures from pre-modern era, they're really going up in price. This one hasn't jumped yet. It might just be because, it doesn't fit in as many decks as say like an Exalted Angel or something. But, there were a lot of creatures that I looked at when I first started playing pre-modern just a couple years ago, and I thought like, oh, this is just a pretty solid creature. Let me buy a play set, and I got them for like 50 cents, and now they're $10. It's happened with like multiple things that they're definitely good, but they weren't necessarily cards I thought were going to go up in price that much in a short period of time as pre-modern got more popular.
I wish
It's
I'd done that
happened.
with Powder Keg.
It's happened. Hasn't happened to Mystic Enforcer yet. Powder Keg is even worse because that's a reserve list, right?
Oh yeah.
Gatherer rating of 4.020. I haven't played much with Threshold in pre-modern yet, but this will likely go in any Threshold deck I build. But it's not limited to decks that are necessarily focused on the Threshold mechanic. Like you said, anything that's going to be filling up your graveyard a lot. So we've seen this in certain Quirion Dryad builds, like from way back in the day, the Super Grow builds. These were the later versions of the Miracle Grow deck. After this was printed, this made their way into some of them because you got so many cantrip, draw spells, library manipulation spells that you're playing fast to grow the power of your Quirion Dryad. At the same time, you're also filling up your graveyard. So this
Yeah.
is another option uh, to put in your deck as a big creature. And this one, the Quirion Dryad hits the board as early as possible, starts off very susceptible to all sorts of removal, starts off slow. You need to protect it in order to build it. This hits the board mid-game, it's already going to be big when it comes in. It's coming in big. It's coming in hot and pissed off because you just killed its Quirion Dryad and it wants revenge. I also currently have this in a green-white control build I'm brewing. And that brew, I reach threshold if I successfully play the long game. If I control the board state the way I want to control it, I'm going to get 7 cards in my graveyard. Mystic Enforcer is going to come out as a late game finisher. What does V have to say about this one? He said the final versions of Miracle Grow, he brought this up too, which were dubbed Super Grow, used Mystic Enforcer as a finisher. He also says Mystic Enforcer could be easily slipped into more normal builds than its cheaper brethren for several reasons. By normal, he means, I think, decks that don't necessarily just go in on the threshold mechanic or decks that aren't necessarily just full of cantrips. First, it can dominate a game as a makeshift dragon while its protection from black leaves very few good options for removing it. Second, being more expensive can be an advantage to a threshold card because that gives you time to get the requisite cards into your graveyard, assuming that you're being rewarded for all your extra effort. It's just a good card for multiple reasons. It's good if you go
In
heavy on this mechanic. It's good in all sorts of decks that don't go heavy on the mechanic, that just happen to be filling up the graveyard for other reasons.
Yeah, outside of the Dryad and like a specific threshold deck, just being in green, I'm thinking helps it for something like Natural Order, where you're gonna, put a spell and a sacrificed creature in your graveyard at once.
Yeah, there's definitely
Um,
some of that in green. Yeah.
I was trying to think of something like Elvish Spirit Guide removes itself from the game, so I don't know if there are other cards like that
Uh,
that you can pitch from your hand to. I think they almost all go out of the game, but maybe like a Lotus Petal or, you know, some things like that. They could give you some like, early game
yeah,
ramp or whatever and fill up your graveyard. Hi, Fiona.
I got a cat attacking me. Can't be doing this. You can't be doing this on the show. Okay, yes, all those things. It's a good card. It's just a straight up good card. I'm playing a lot of it now. I'm playing the shit out of it. Hibernation Sliver is the next one on the list. 30 feet, 33 on V's list, 26 on our list. We're getting close to the end of the cards we're going to talk about. Today, we want to leave the next half for part two. Hibernation Sliver. Hmm. We got another sliver. This is the second sliver, I think, that made the list. It will not be the last sliver. They're very limited to sliver decks, but sliver decks can be just so good, and we're so good in so many different time periods of Magic the Gathering that they made the list, man. This one is 1 blue, 1 black, 2/2 summon sliver. Each sliver gains pay 2 life. Return this creature to owner's hand. It is a rare from Stronghold, also printed in Commander Masters, a sliver's premium deck, and a secret layer. Current market price 53 cents, gather a rating of 3.854. A card that is worthless outside of sliver decks, but it sure is good in sliver decks. I think the biggest strength of this card is that you don't need any mana to activate its ability. Well, let me say that differently. The biggest strength of this card is its ability. But other than that, the next biggest strength is you don't have to pay any mana to activate this ability.
Yeah.
I underestimated this card when I first saw it, but it's a fantastic ability for a creature horde deck. What does V have to say about it? Cards like Wrath of God and Pyroclasm were the natural enemies of decks full of 2-drops, but what good is a Wrath of God if they simply untap and put their creatures back on the table? Which you can do when you have Hibernation Sliver. Untap, put your creatures back on the table.
Yeah, once I saw this in play, I realized how hard it made it to kill my opponent's slivers.
It's unclear whether this was the most necessary of the slivers, but it was the one that frustrated the most opposing plans to deal with the problem. The problem being the sliver horde. And if they have a board wipe, you don't necessarily need to save all of your slivers even, because the slivers give beneficial effects to each other. Sometimes you can just pay 4 life and keep like your 2 most important slivers,
Yeah.
or the 2 slivers that synergize with each other the best. And then still you're able to come back hard after that wrath effect or after that board wipe. I really like the fact, like I said, that you didn't have to pay any mana to have this ability, just pay the life. That means you can keep doing things that you want to be able to do with a creature horde deck, which is just like every turn, tap out, advance your board state, march forward, and you don't have to leave mana open to save anything from a Wrath effect, from a Wrath of God, from a Pyroclasm or whatever. You can be
Yep.
tapped out, pay the life, bring it back to your hand, save your horde. The first Sliver deck I built didn't have Hibernation Sliver in it. I was doing 5-color slivers. I was like, I don't need a Hibernation Sliver. Should put one in. Next card, I think. Next card, Goblin Trenches. Goblin Trenches. This is a card that entices me, but I have not played it yet. I do have a copy right here in my hand. I'm fiddling with a Goblin Trenches as we speak right now, as we record. I pulled this from a bin at a local LGS. Paid 25 cents for it. You can get these cheap still. One colorless, one red, one white. Enchantment. It states, pay 2 colorless, sacrifice a land, colon, put 2 1/1 red and white Goblin Soldier creature tokens into play. It is a rare from Apocalypse. It's also in Eternal Masters. Current market price at 37 cents. Gather a rating of 4.319. This is another card that I believe made V's list for its power in a particular time and place that had a more limited card pool available to it than what's available in the pre-modern format. What does he say? Good finishers for control decks that don't run any creatures can be hard to find, and Goblin Trenches filled that role at a time that nothing else could have. There were lots of good answers to individual threats, no matter how large, and most decks were sitting on several when it came time to finish them. Even if you weren't trying to strand a bunch of cards, the matches often turned into exhaustion wars to see who would have spells left over when the music stopped, and Goblin Trenches would blow such matches wide open. So it was good for a particular time, particular place, the part that it played in control decks in that era. What did I have to say about it? Possibly a nice option for red, white, blue control decks. I don't come across it in pre-modern decks very often, though. I like this card. I just really wish it didn't have an activation cost of 2.
Yeah, that's the worst part about it.
It makes it so hard to Armageddon into, which I guess if you could Armageddon into it, it would just be so much better than get more
Yeah.
play. But that's the world we live in. This is the card they printed. Can't be the card that I would want rather it be. It's just the card that was printed. I look at this card, I have the same thoughts that I have when I look at like Kyoto and Outpost now. It's like, oh, why don't I see more Kyoto and Outposts in control style decks running white? It's just that was the card that you had in control decks that would help you not only, that would help you when you countered everything and removed everything that your opponent played there. That's what that would be your finisher in control style decks. It's just not needed in pre-modern. It was big in its era, but it's not needed in pre-modern. There are other
Mhm.
options for the control decks. I think the same issue is probably true with Goblin Trenches. They have other better options. Coming in at number 24 on our list, number 31 in the original list from Zvi, Fiery Justice. Fiery Justice. I was pretty excited to see this card. It is 1 white, 1 red, 1 green, a rare from Ice Age. That's why I was excited to see it. I wasn't expected to see like an extremely underplayed rare from Ice Age on the list of top 50 gold cards of all time. Up until 2009, of course. That's when this article was printed. It's also in Time Shifted, also in Commander 2013, also in Modern Masters, also in Double Masters. So something must have happened in the modern era that made this card like better during some time period than it was when we first opened it from packs. Especially if they reprinted it in Modern Masters and Double Masters. Current market price 41 cents. Gather a rating of 3.103. So people in general aren't always in love with it, but it had its time in the sun. I'd say, you know, it's hard to reliably cast on turn 3. It's 1 white, 1 red, 1 green. So you're not always going to get it on turn 3. Although, this is kind of deck where you might be running Birds of Paradise in, so it may be easier. But who cares?
Yeah.
Usually, I think I would want to wait a couple turns longer because there are many decks that would lose 3 creatures to this spell if you wait longer than turn 3 to
Yeah, I feel
play.
like this is a later game play to either kill a big fatty or get rid of a couple, small to medium-sized creatures,
I don't
and you
think I
can
read
allow
what it
your
did.
opponent gaining life for it.
It is a sorcery. Fiery Justice deals 5 damage divided any way you choose among any number of target creatures and or players. Target
Mhm.
opponent gains 5 life.
I feel like I'd really get it if it were an instant, because then you could use this to like turn the tide of a combat,
That
you
would
know?
be, yeah, that would be so much better. What did V said? He said the 5 life points are the problem. So this is the downside of the card. 3 mana, deal 5 damage divided as you choose among any number of targets. Your opponent gains 5 life. And for a long time, this card went criminally underused because players had a hard time giving their opponents life points. In a different color combination, that would not have been much of an issue, as control decks would gladly use a card like this to buy themselves time, take out one big threat or possibly multiple threats, multiple smaller threats. But the beatdown decks, this is the key, considering the colors you required to cast Fiery Justice. These were traditionally more beatdown colors, red and green. But the beatdown decks that were in these colors were understandably reluctant to force themselves to count to 25. It's going to make it that much harder to finish your opponent with a lightning bolt if you've given them five life previously.
Yeah.
Sideboards that probably should have had this card due to its ability to dominate a board decided to take a pass. It then came into its own thanks to Kavu Predator, which turned the
Aha.
drawback of 5 life into a whopping 5/5. That's probably why this card is in Modern Masters and in Double Masters.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we
Totally
can't.
makes sense when he explains that, which I
Yeah,
did not know about.
neither did I. Fortunately, we can't play Kavu Predator in Premodern, not Premodern legal. It is one colorless, one green, 2/2 creature Kavu. It has trample, and it says whenever an opponent gains life, put that many +1/+1 counters on Kavu Predator. So now all of a sudden, you have Fiery Justice in the beatdown colors that strengthens your beatdown deck. Drop a Predator on turn 2, drop a Fiery Justice on turn 3, kill their manimals, kill some small things they have on the board, and then you're staring at they're staring down the barrel of a 7/7 Kavu Predator,
Yep, I
That's
like it.
sick. That's sick, Alex. So, what about pre-modern? Honestly, I still don't mind paying 5 life to clear out 3 creatures in pre-modern, but I'm thinking about the 3 modern or the 3 color mana bases in pre-modern. Like you're gonna be running pain lands and stuff too. It's just rough. I don't want to give them 5 life and then also probably lose 1 or 2 life to cast this via, with a pain land.
Yeah. Unless you have some other weird combo like that Kavu Predator, I just feel like there's so many other options.
Yeah.
Pre-modern has a big card pool, and you have lots of red direct damage, and you have Wrath of God, and you have I don't know.
But I
But
like,
cool combo.
very cool. And this is part of the reason why I love reading these old articles because you learn about the history of Magic and,
Yeah,
what was big during different times and
yeah,
things that synergized with new cards as they were printed. And they just sat in our bulk bins when Ice Age came out. But then, years later, Kavu Predator was printed. All of a sudden, this
yeah.
becomes a sick ass
Great
card to
example
play.
of a card that got better with a printing of a new card.
That was pretty cool. Next card, 29 on V's list, 23 on ours. Cavern Harpy. We know the Cavern Harpy. A card that I never really played. I think it's cool, but again, I don't tend towards broken combo style decks that go infinite, and that's really what this is used for. It's funny, he makes a comment at some point in this article about this card that I feel like is directed almost, I feel like it's directed towards me, even though it's just really talking about the type of Magic player I am. But Cavern Harpy, 1 blue, 1 black, 2/1, creature beast, flying. When Cavern Harpy comes into play, return a blue or black creature you control to its owner's hand. Pay 1 life. Return Cavern Harpy to its owner's hand. Rare from Plane Shift, also printed in the list. Current market price of 20 cents. Gatherer rating of 4.106. I see this card in pre-modern Aluren decks. This is apparently when it was seen in olden times as well from Zvi. Cavern Harpy is the card that made the Aluren decks run by letting you duplicate effects on queue with the rest of the pieces being able to fluctuate with the format and times. This made it a far more important card than its numbers would indicate because it made an entire deck exist for a long time. And in some cases, Aluren was the only viable combo strategy available. Taking it away would have radically altered the balance. In limited, Cavern Harpy was a deadly card for the right decks, impossible to kill and giving you a lot of tricks to pull off. So, good outside of the combo brokenness. In limited, that effectiveness in limited kept making it seem like there was something here for decks that played things mostly straight, but it never quite worked out. That's what stuck out to me. Like I like to play things mostly straight, and I
Yeah.
look at this deck or I look at the Cavern Harpy and I'm like, ooh, I'm gonna play this in a blue-black tempo deck where I have fucking Mana Wars.
Yeah, some kind of enter the battlefield creatures. And this was one of the
Yes.
cards I noticed right when we first started playing again. I was like, this is cool. I can do some unsummony shenanigans with this card. So I was thinking of playing it kind of regular style, uh, and not through a fancy combo. And then I learned about the Alluring thing. Um, but it's a neat card.
It's a neat card, but yeah, I am that person that looks at it and I'm like, there might be something here for a deck that plays mostly straight, and it just doesn't quite work out. Now, when he says it doesn't quite work out, I mean it's like you don't win tournaments, but
Yeah.
that's not what I'm about, man. I'm about playing the cards. Try to play all the different cards. Try to play as many cards as I can, and try to make a reasonable, at least mid-power deck out of it. I like the Cavern Harpy, but it's not on this list just because it's a fabulous creature. It's on this list because it enabled a particular type of combo deck that does really well in certain environments when the Cavern Harp is available to. Lightning Angel. Lightning Angel is next on this list. It's 28 on Jvi's list. It's 22 on our list. This is another creature. Still quite cheap. Don't think it's ever going to see the move, that Call of the Herd has seen or the Exalted Angel has seen. Again, because its use is
Yeah.
just limited to a 3-color deck. It is 1 colorless, 1 red, 1 white, 1 blue, 3/4 creature angel. It has flying and haste. Attacking doesn't cause Lightning Angel to tap. So I saw this creature. I love this. This is the color combo that I loved playing back in the day with my Moat. White, blue, red. This was my wheelhouse. In addition to that, it's just for casting cost, and it has three great abilities: flying, haste, and vigilance. I love vigilance on a 4 toughness body. Can't block everything, but it can still block a lot of stuff reliably, get in for
Mhm.
some damage, and then just sit there and monitor the battlefield. You don't want to attack with your lions. You don't want to attack with plenty of other things because it's going to die to the lightning angel. What did I have to say about this? I wrote a card that actually made Raka Sanctuary decent. I saw this in a Gatherer comment, and I can't remember even what Raka Sanctuary is. I know I have some of these Sanctuary cards that I pulled from bulk bins over the last year or so. Raka Sanctuary is an uncommon from Apocalypse, 16 cents market price right now. 2 colors, 1 red, enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you control a white or blue permanent, Raka Sanctuary deals 1 damage to target creature. If you control a white permanent and a blue permanent, Raka Sanctuary deals 3 damage to that creature instead.
Ah,
That's decent. So what did they say? A card that could actually make Raka Sanctuary decent. Okay, I agree with maybe with that assessment of decent.
yeah.
Not not great, but decent.
Yeah, it's a super fun card. It's cool. It's just the tough part is like for 4 or 5 mana and mono white, like look what you can cast, you know?
Yes, that is a good point. But if you're playing mono white, you can't call your deck the Patriot.
Correct.
What does V say about this? Lightning Angel is the embodiment of the term good stuff. That is very true. And this goes in a red, white, blue good stuff deck. When people want to play red, white, blue, when they're feeling the love for their country, when they're feeling patriotic, perhaps on Memorial Day, you sleeve up the Lightning Angel. Lightning Angel gets you 3 damage, a turn in the air, hits right away, and keeps the rabble in check, all for only 4 mana. In its day, it towered over similar choices, and even when it was brought back years later, it was competitive. A big key to the Angel's success or failure is whether it can win fights against its most natural enemies, which leaves it coming up a little short these days due to a wealth of 4/4s both on the ground and in the air. But in an era full of bears, few combats were a problem. So that's key. Some eras where you just had fewer commonly played 4 power creatures coming at you. This could change the game when it hit the board because of its vigilance, because of its 4 toughness. Survives Lightning Bolt too. A great choice if you want to play pre-modern deck full of gold. That's what I say. That's what I'm doing with this bitch. With all due respect. I shouldn't have said this bitch. Lightning Bolt. No, not Lightning Bolt, Lightning Angel. And Prophetic Bolt.
Ball lightning.
This is also ball. I'm going to run 4 ball lightnings in my Lightning Angel deck. That's sick. The most uncast. I'm going to make a lightning themed deck where it's really hard to cast anything.
Yeah, yeah, there you go.
Next card, Lim-Dul's Vault. 27 on V's list, 21 on our list. Let me look this up on. Uh,
I like this card and I never played in anything. I feel like I need to figure out something to play this card in.
I am never playing this card because there's too much text on it.
Ah,
You get to the second paragraph and I'm out. I don't give a shit how good it is. I'm not playing it. It's one black, one black, one blue. Instant. Look at the top 5 cards of your library. As many times as you choose, you may pay 1 life to put those cards on the bottom of your library and look at the top 5 cards of your library. Shuffle all but the top 5 cards of your library. There's a semicolon in here too. You put a semicolon in the text box, I'm out. Put those 5 on top of your library in any order. Effects that prevent or redirect damage cannot be used to counter this loss of life. So pay 1 life to look through 5 cards. Don't like them? Look for 5 more cards. Let me read that shit again. Look at the top 5
yeah,
cards of your
you're right.
library. Pay 1 life, put those cards on the bottom, then look at the top 5 cards again. Then at the end, you shuffle everything except for those 5 cards. That's what I just said.
Yeah.
Just reading it again. Uncommon from Alliances, also in Commander 13 and a recent Secret Layer. Current market price of $4.67. Gather rating of 4.617. It's good. It is good. There's a lot of combo style decks that will utilize this to help you get the cards that you want. But there are
Mhm.
also a lot of other cards in pre-modern. We've talked about this before. Sometimes it's hard to know which cards of this type to play over the
Yeah.
other. Because depending on what colors you're playing,
And you have a
blue,
lot of options that are mono blue that do this
yeah,
sort of thing. So
exactly. What does V have to say about it? He says it's a super tutor. If you want, if all you want to find is 1 card, you can find it. But the vault offers something more by letting you preview what cards would come along with it, allowing players to plot out the next several turns of the game and see if the sequence being offered would get it done. This is another reason why I don't play it. When you have the memory of a goldfish, how do you expect me to remember the 5 cards that I just looked at in what order they're in? Am I
yeah.
allowed to, after you play this spell, you're not allowed to pick them up again and look at them later when I forget, unless I have another Lim-Dul's Vault around. The Vault was ideal for stasis decks and offered quality search at a time when other searching was at best severely limited. So there you go. It is a very good searcher. You can just keep going, giving up 1 life. Sometimes you might even be playing a deck where you want to give up that life. You want to lower your life for some reason. Those decks, it's fantastic. But for me, too much text, and also it's hard to read. The original Alliance's printing,
Oh yeah.
everything is so faded and the text is so small. What is the what does the Gatherer uh, text currently say?
It's about the same. They took out the clause about the damage at the end, and that's like all those old cards that said that.
Look at the top five cards of your library. See, the text is larger, so this is better for
Yeah,
me
well, they got
already.
rid of a whole sentence.
Whew, okay. Maybe that won me over. Yeah, they got rid of the effects that prevent a redirect damage cannot be used to counter this loss of life. Look at the top five cards of your library. As many times as you choose, you may pay one life. Put those cards on the bottom of your library in any order. And look at the top five cards of your library. I'm being kind of flippant discussing this card.
I know.
Too much text for me. Very good card. Very good tutor. Uh, at this time, especially, nothing else could do this,
Yeah.
even close to this. You had of course demonic tutor, which would get whatever you wanted, whatever one card you wanted, put it in your hand, but you can never go through your deck and look for like a particular combination of cards that might be close to one another.
Well, what was the deal with demonic
I
consultation?
don't think.
Because
Oh, that was Ice Age.
it was Ice Age, but I'm not sure like if it was like always legal or you know what I mean?
It definitely hasn't been always legal, but I don't know
Yeah.
the history of
It probably
demonic
was legal
consultations.
right then, right after Ice Age, until it got abused.
I don't know the history of demonic consultations legality.
Yeah.
But that was again just one card, and everything else goes in your graveyard, right?
Exile.
Exile. Name the top six. No, sorry. Name a card. Remove the top six cards of your library from the game and reveal the next card to all players. So already there's a risk you're running there
Yeah.
where it might be in the top six. Although you could run these in the same deck potentially. Make sure it wasn't in the top six. Well, make sure it wasn't in the top five, right? You could Lim-Dul's Vault to make sure the top five of your cards of your deck weren't the card you named, and then you could find it below that.
Yeah.
I don't know why if anybody wants to do that. Remove the
I
top
just
six
brought it up because yeah, you said yeah.
remove the top six cards of your library from the game and reveal the next card to all players. If it's not the card named, uh, if it is the card named, sorry, put it in your hand. If not, remove that card from the game. Continue revealing the top card of your library, removing it from the game until the named card appears. The type of card that terrified me as a child, but the type of card that is fantastic if you need to get one card to finish the game.
Yeah.
That's where
You
you
have a
run this.
super crazy combo that's airtight.
That's where you run this. When you want to go airtight, like Alex said, you run demonic consultation. And that's it for today, Alex. We are stopping with Lim-Dul's Vault.
That's it. So what do we
And
got?
then
Like the best 20 for next time?
top 20
Top
pre-modern
20.
gold cards, 20 to 1. Is it in the order of strength in pre-modern card pool? I don't really know, but it's close enough for the most part. Like the top five, I think are pretty similar to what I would have made.
Okay.
What are the top five? I can't remember, so I'm making that statement. I might be wrong. I say the top three definitely. Can't remember exactly the top five. But that's it for today. I'm going to go downstairs. I'm going to cook some macaroni and cheese. I'm going to pop open a Fago and I'm going to put my feet up and sit on the porch and eat macaroni and cheese and drink Fago and watch the people walk by.
Do you really have Fago?
No,
Okay.
I don't have macaroni and cheese either. And
Oh.
I have a gluten allergy, although
Whole life is a lie.
I don't tell people what I'm really up to on this show. They don't know me. They think they know me. I make them think they know me,
Yeah.
but really,
Smoke screen.
I don't tell them anything. I don't reveal any details. Sometimes people ask questions, like when somebody was like earlier in the show, "Who's Kyle from Ohio?" I said, "Don't worry about it. You don't need to know." And then they're like, "You brought it up." And then I'm like, "I don't want you listening to the show anymore. Unsubscribe."
He
And
doesn't even
then And then Alex, you're over there like, who are you even talking to? Nobody's talking to you. Nobody's talking about Cavern. And then I'm like, maybe I just ingested some magic mushrooms before we started recording that I bought on the Silk Road back in 2010 when I had Bitcoin. I should have kept that Bitcoin, traded it in for magic mushrooms. And over the last, what, 15 years, the magic mushrooms have not increased in price. But if I still had that Bitcoin, I could retire in Monaco. You could retire in Monaco too, Alex. I'd bring you with me. Would you come to Monaco with me?
Yeah,
You're
of
not
course.
invited. You're not
Oh,
invited. No,
oh.
you would be invited, actually. You'd be one of few people that I invite. Thank you for doing the show with me. Do you have anything you want to say to the listeners before we leave?
Oh, geez. I don't know. Thank you again for tuning in and using our affiliate link and listening to us ramble about magic cards. It's always fun to talk to you guys about pre-modern cards. I think maybe in the upcoming weeks we'll have some uh, new bits on modern market moves and
We need to do that.
not modern market moves that are happening.
Pre-modern market moves.
Pre-modern market moves, old school
Current
market moves too, maybe.
current
I've been
moves in
playing
the pre-modern
some
market.
new cards in sealed formats and starter deck formats recently with some of my family members who I have gotten into Magic, and I'm having lots of fun trying out some starter decks from sets that I otherwise wouldn't have like gotten into because I didn't want to learn a whole card pool and try to build
Yeah,
decks in it. But playing some of these starter decks is kind of fun. So
pretty good.
I'm experimenting with some few things and playing some cardboard.
We need to get some of the World Championship decks or starter decks from like back in the day.
Yeah.
Try to get them to play with those. That'd be pretty cool. Although,
Mhm.
don't know how much those cost right now. They're probably more expensive than like the Jumpstart decks from right
Yeah.
now. So, okay, forget about it then. Unless you guys click that affiliate link, and then maybe we can use some of that money to buy some old World Championship decks, and then Alex can play with his nephew. And then you can be like, put them in sleeves.
Oh yeah, we've already done that.
Okay. Okay, it was nice chatting with you. Until next time, we're out.
Thank you.
Ain't gonna do this anymore. That's all for me. Goodbye.